It was a very busy weekend of basketball here at FingerLakes1.com. Over the weekend, we had the New York State Public High School Athletic Association boys and girls tournaments this weekend. And also, Paul and I were able to go to the NCAA March Madness tournament over the weekend. First, we'll welcome in everyone here in the studio. It's myself, I'm Nate Sharman, Kyle Evans, Jim Sinacopi, and producer Paul Russo. We'll start with the New York State Basketball Association tournament for high school sports. The Waterloo Lady Tigers were able to come out victorious as first time in school history they were able to capture the illustrious state title. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and they've been there to that level several times. Close, even thinking about 2014, I think, with Lauren Deming and Lindsey Johnson. And
13 season, yeah.
That was 13. And so, yeah, a culmination of a lot of commitment from a lot of people, from youth to, current coaches, and a lot of support and a special group of girls.
Yeah, and the way they did it was also very impressive. I mean, going into the quarter down 10, actually was a 12-point lead that they erased because they got a basket right when the fourth quarter opened.
Yep.
So just an impressive run like they always seem to do. But this time it was in the fourth quarter, not the third.
I mean, my question is, were they down 10 points in every single game in the postseason since the sectional final against Palmac?
I think so, yeah.
They came back from a double-digit. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Right.
But I know they were down at half or in the second quarter of almost every game, but I can't remember if they were down by 10 or more in every one of those games. Like there was Depew in the Far West Regional, right?
And then Hornell.
Oh, yep. Yeah. They were down all those games.
Down in all those games. Hornell, yeah, they were down over double digits in half. And
Putnam
then they
Valley
were
in the semis?
They were down by 1 at halftime. I don't think it was. I don't know if it was ever 10. I don't think so, right, Paul? I think it stayed in that single digits area, that 5 to 7 range for a lot of the game.
Yeah, they were down by double digits going into the fourth quarter against Putnam Valley. Is that right? The game we're talking about here?
When that semifinals?
No, Putnam Valley was the final.
Putnam Valley's the final. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Against Cortland, I don't think they were ever down double digits.
Cortland, they were pretty
down by 1 at halftime.
Yeah, but outside of that, they were pretty much well in control of that game, at least in my mind, anyway.
I mean, that's the phenomenal part about this run. But got so used to it that you look and see, they're down at halftime, they're going to win.
Right, but then we were thinking after that third quarter, there was no run from Waterloo like we've seen. They actually lost that third quarter against Putnam Valley by 5, so it became a 10-point deficit going into the fourth. And we're like, oh man, is this the end for Waterloo? They've been really using that third quarter, but they just made us wait a quarter extra, and did it in the fourth quarter, winning that quarter by 20.
One easy.
Yeah, they were down by 10 going in the quarter and winning by 10. So
yeah, they didn't just erase the deficit. They scored 30 fourth quarter points. That's just insane.
Yeah. I mean, they had some big three. Natalie DeSanto hit a couple big threes. Addison Bree at least hit 1. She may have hit 2. I think maybe Caraballo hit 1 too as well. So they were getting good shots a lot of the game, but they just finally started falling in that fourth quarter.
And they're going to continue on and compete in the Federation.
Yep.
Okay.
In the Federation's tournament, they're going to play the South Bronx prep team at Shenandoah on Saturday at 3 p.m.
I can see why you do that. You don't want it to end. You have this group. They're going to get to play together more, maybe even achieve another goal. But part of me is like, you won the state title. Let's wrap it up. We won our last game. It was a state championship. But I get it, especially if you ask any of those kids. I'm sure they're going to want to continue to play if they have an opportunity. And I know a lot of those kids are also good softball or lacrosse players too. Yep. So at some point they got to transition to spring. But, a state championship, like sectional championships are great. Any sectional championship team, it's a successful season. The trophy's in the school trophy case forever. A lot of schools put the team roster up in their gym, so you can come back 20 years down the road with your kids or grandkids and say, oh, look at your old man or your mom here on the wall. But a state championship, they put signs on the roads. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's something that kind of transcends the local school community into the community as a whole, and then even gains some recognition, regionally. So like a lot of people that I've talked to over the past few days is like, oh man, Waterloo won the state championship, and then they'll remember, oh yeah, Romulus won in 2013, and South Seneca won, and So those types of championships are really hard to get, and when they are, they matter at a different level. Just for making your mark if you're on that team in your community. And so, congratulations. I know that that's been something that over the past few years they've really tried to do, and it was never a guarantee, obviously, that they'd be able to achieve it. Highly successful, but you can have a super successful program, never win a state title.
Right. And we're looking to get that team here in the studio at some point this week. Not sure if everyone's going to be able to make it, just with spring sports going on and stuff like you mentioned, Jim. But hopefully going to be able to get some of those Lady Tigers in here and talk to them. Really looking forward to that.
And what a weekend for Section 5 in general.
Yes, right.
Talk about it. First of all, AA, the two biggest classifications in New York State, Section 5 sweep, Victor Blue Devils, Webster Schroeder Girls.
Yep.
Both state champions from Section 5. And that stuff matters to basketball fans around here. We like to think that we have some of the best basketball in the state.
Yes.
And, proved it this year that we do. Not only with just those, but, we had Irondequoit lost in the state finals. Canandaigua lost in the state finals. Who else was there?
Avoca Prattsburg won Class D.
Won Class D. So there's 4 state titles
back to back for Avoca Prattsburg too.
So that's a bit of a dynasty. So you got A, B, C, D, and AA. So in 10 classifications, Section 5 won 4 of them.
Pretty
4
good.
state titles. Yeah. Pretty good. And I've had representation now. I was at Glens Falls for the boys, and Newark just did not have a good game. West Hill was very good. They had a super athlete, Gil Martin, who's I think going to play lacrosse at Cornell. And there was a team with some championship pedigree. They'd won before recently. They'd been there to Glens Falls, and it just Newark came out flat. Just didn't really have it for whatever reason. But as I was calling the game, looking at it, they were down 10 going into the fourth quarter, and their two biggest scorers, Braden Steve, Rayshawn Howard. Braden Steve had 2 points. I think Rayshawn had 4, maybe 5 points going into the fourth quarter, and they were only down 10. You would have think with that they would have been just getting crushed. So I was like, man, if they can just come out in the fourth quarter, hit a couple shots, and can easily get right back into this game. But it was the opposite direction. They started turning it over even more and did not improve their shooting. And West Hill started out 10-10 shooting in the fourth quarter. So that game was over. And obviously it leaves a real sour taste in your mouth if you're a Newark fan, but it shouldn't erase what was a real quality season for the Reds.
Right. It's just really impressive for me for Newark. They have 2 wins in a season, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was 3 seasons ago. They
So it's quite the turnaround. It's amazing what Coach Couperis and Coach Cerverello have been able to do over there at Newark.
Yeah, and I should mention Ron Cervello, legendary Newark coach, was on the bench all for the past several years as an assistant. This was his last year, so what a way to go out, getting a trip back to Glens Falls, a place where he has brought teams before as a head coach, and to get that second straight sectional title. So all in all, really successful season for those kids from Newark, those seniors especially, and they'll have a pretty good team coming back too next year.
Right. Paul, is there anything that stuck out from you from our weekend in Hudson Valley?
I'd say, for me, it's kind of just for Waterloo. You expected, that the stuff to kind of happen in a way, but I don't know if it was maybe a little bit. It's something that we've alluded to a few different times, whether just discussing it, on Upstate Hoops or on these little, tidbits and segments we do like this. But, this was the first time in 3 years, that we've had quote unquote normalcy, where, you're able to come back in, have full-fledged games, tournaments, with full
normal
allowable
season
capacity, Yep. And I'd say, because last year, don't get me wrong, it was pretty busy at Hudson Valley Community College, There was a lot of people who did come out, but compared to last year, this year was just a different environment. So many more people. Just the atmosphere was, even last year I thought was great, but this year was just 10 times better, right? And I don't mean just for, say, Waterloo or Canandaigua or anything local like that. Just the grand scheme of things, I thought was one of the cooler environments I think I've ever kind of had a pleasure of experiencing, to be honest. And obviously cap that off with Waterloo bringing back a championship. That's just, I think, for the position that we're in, it's just kind of icing on the cake at that point.
All right, yeah, let's move over now and talk about March Madness. It's just been an absolutely crazy NCAA tournament so far. I think it's highlighted, right, by Fairleigh Dickinson, taking down Purdue in that first round.
Everybody taking everybody down.
Yeah, I mean, multiple 2 seeds have gone down too. We've seen another 1 seed in Kansas go down. So it's really crazy.
Yeah, I'm all about the chaos. Princeton loved it. I'm not a big college basketball guy, but I have been watching some of the games, and like I said, I'm all about the chaos. I'm always rooting for the underdog.
How's your bracket doing, Jim?
I didn't fill out a single bracket this year.
Oh, wow. Is that the first
year?
year?
The first year ever.
I've learned before this show that Kyle has never filled out a March Madness bracket in his life.
Oh, really? How come?
I don't know. I'm just not very interested in it. But this year, I'm starting to get more interested. And probably next year, I'll fill out my first one.
Kyle might predict the perfect bracket next year. You heard it here first.
Yeah, no, to me, obviously Syracuse isn't in it, but I'm still interested in the tournament. But the thing about it is, it's crazy, is everybody gets seeds. So you got the Power 5 conferences and the top seeds and all that. It's all crap. It really is. There's so much parity from top to bottom in college basketball due to the transfer portal, due to the top incoming high school recruits are all one and dones. So they're not developing into a complete player the way they used to. Like, go back in time and look at like a Kansas team with Danny Manning, or, even Syracuse. Derek Coleman was there for 4 years. It just doesn't happen anymore. So the top teams that get the top recruits aren't really having them long enough to make them as impactful. And as good as talented as some of them are, they really aren't as valuable to a team as a 4-year senior who is maybe a 3-star recruit, who stayed at a school like Florida Atlantic or Fairleigh Dickinson or Princeton. It's just created complete parity. And when it comes right down to it, in these do or die situations that the NCAA tournament brings every single game, the experience matters. So, and then you also got the transfer portal where you get a top recruit, comes to a top school, doesn't see as much time as he'd like, so he decides he's going to transfer to a mid-major where he's going to be a star. And so everybody seeds them. And of course, the power conferences are going to get the top seeds, even though maybe they shouldn't anymore, because you look at how good the Big East is doing in this tournament.
Very well, yes.
Compared to the Big Ten or the ACC.
Yeah.
The Big Ten especially. Penn State, Northwestern, Illinois, Maryland, Iowa, Purdue, all gone.
Right. They only have Michigan State left, I think, right, Paul?
Yeah, and who does ACC has Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, right?
Yeah, one team.
Yeah, so 2 of the preeminent college basketball conferences in the country have one team left. It's so what I wish I did instead of filling out a bracket, but would have been to just put $10 on every money line underdog in the first 2 rounds. You know how well that would have cashed out? Fairleigh Dickinson alone would have probably paid for half of your money you had to put in to do that.
Right.
But yeah, there's just, if you see anybody in the NCAA tournament, it's like a 20-point underdog. Like, that just shouldn't be. That's just not right.
What I like so much about the tournament too is you have like Fairleigh Dickinson. If Fairleigh Dickinson were to play Purdue 10 times, Purdue probably beats them 9.
Probably.
But it's just so much fun to watch. It's a 1-game tournament. It's what's going on in these next 40 minutes of basketball. That's so fun. Like I mentioned off the top of the show, Paul and I were able to go in Albany. We saw Indiana play Kent State in the nightcap, and then before that, Miami played Drake, and it was just really fun, even more fun than I thought it would be to go to something like that. Paul, what did you think?
It was fun being part of Agents of Chaos, as I call it, because, I mean, look, obviously we know you led off with the nightcap game, but, I mean, Indiana obviously travels well. They pack the joint no matter what. Drake, traveled beyond well. I think more well than I thought. Ton of Miami fans there, but not as in a precise location. I mean, even look, there was a pretty good section of Kent State people there as well. So it's kind of crazy to be in a specific game moment where there are two distinct fan bases, and then pretty much everybody else in the place is going wherever the momentum is.
Right.
How was the arena?
So awesome. I love the arena.
Yeah. Did you?
It was, for the most part, it was all right. A little bit outdated in a couple features. The seats were not great by any means in terms of
comfort.
The actual seats themselves. Yeah.
I'm 5'7", so I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah. But the view, honestly, there probably isn't really a bad viewing angle in the place, to be honest. We were kind of up in the back corner, not all the way up, but really great view of the whole court. I mean, I kind of prefer being either, if I'm not courtside, I'd rather be up a little bit, so I just have the visual element of it a little bit better. So that was cool. I mean, it was my first ever NCAA Division I tournament experience. I got lucky when I was at college in Erie, Pennsylvania. They hosted the Division II Women's Elite Eight. So for those who don't know, beyond D1, D2, and D3, they don't do Final Four at one location. They do the Elite Eight at one location. And so I was able to actually work that and go to those. And don't get me wrong, the experience was awesome. But nothing touches Division I March Madness like that. Even at that stage, as a regional.
I'd been to a few at the Carrier Dome, first round, and actually a Sweet 16 at the Dome. But the best part, I mean, I was a student there too for one of them, and so basically all day long, we just come in and out, and all these teams from around the country. UCLA was there, I remember. It's fun. But the thing about the NCAA tournament, I think, makes it so great that almost anybody can watch and have interest in it, even if you're not a basketball fan or a college basketball fan, is that every single game you're watching is do or die. Somebody's going home and their season's over, and somebody's moving on. So you don't need to know all that much about it to realize that what you're watching is, could be engaged with what you're seeing, because both teams are putting their seasons and careers on the line. And so I think that's one thing that makes it so great. Sometimes I wonder if the upsets are just overdone, because as I grew up, if you were a top team, you had a decided advantage. So when you saw upsets, they really were upsets, whether it was like Richmond beating Syracuse as a 15-2, or Princeton trying to upset Georgetown when Pat Ewing was there. Those were true David and Goliath, stories, where nowadays, like I said, there's so much parity. Anybody can beat anybody. It's hard to even call some of them upsets. And you watch it play out in front of you, and from the eye test, Farley Dickinson doesn't look like that much worse of a basketball team than Purdue. And so, again, I just think the whole thing has changed quite a bit, and I don't like it as much because you do like to have, I think, favorites. You don't want to go into this tournament and have all your 1 and 2 seeds gone. The teams that, you've been talking about being national title contenders all year, and all of a sudden, after the first weekend, half of them are not even in the tournament anymore.
Right.
But it is what it is. College sports is definitely different than it was, and it's changing. And the tournament, though, is obviously just as engaging, as exciting as it's ever been. It's a really, exciting weekend. It was all over the news, and, newspapers, and everybody knew all the big upsets, and we're talking about it. So when I was in Glens Falls following Newark, after they lost, well, first of all, I got a flat tire, had to get that taken care of. That wasn't much fun. But then finally we went out to dinner with some friends that I know in the Lake George area, and then we went downtown to a couple bars. All the NCAA tournament games were going on the big screens, and the bars were packed with high school basketball parents and coaches from across the state.
That's cool.
All watching March Madness together, and it was a really cool scene in downtown Glens Falls. And Also, they really, they have like a banner across downtown saying "Welcome New York State," basketball.
Oh, that's cool.
Association tournament. And they had all sorts of things related to that tournament going on. So Glens Falls is kind of a small community to host something like that, as opposed to when it was in Binghamton the past few years. So it's cool. And for a lot of people, Glens Falls has a lot of nostalgia.
Yeah, it does.
Because of that, because it's hosted for so long. And also interesting, being in these bars in Glens Falls, they all had some Joe Girard monuments or little sections of the wall that were, to pay tribute to Joe Girard.
One of the best high school athletes in basketball of all time, New York State.
Yeah,
That's
right from there in Glens Falls.
Yep.
So it was a fun weekend. Even though the team I was tasked with fouling didn't win, it was definitely a fun weekend to be in those environments. It's hard to get there as a player or a coach, and so when you do, whether you were successful and won the state title or even lost, it really is an accomplishment just to be able to make that trip.
Right. So we got Sweet 16 basketball on deck for the NCAA tournament. That starts Thursday. And then we'll keep you guys updated on the Waterloo team, the Waterloo girls basketball team, as they go through the Federation tournament.
Yeah,
First
we're
game
not
on
following
Saturday.
them out there for live coverage.
Nope, unfortunately
at this
not.
point. We're going to end on a high note.
Yep, they'll be playing at 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. 3 p.m. Excuse me. Goodness.
Who do you
At
guys
South
got
Bronx
to win
Prep.
it all? But not the Federation, but NCAA right now. There's 16 teams
Houston.
left. You're going with Houston.
That's my pre-tournament pick. So that's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Yeah, as a guy who doesn't know a whole lot, I'd probably go with Houston as well.
All right, I got Syracuse. How about you, Paul?
I got UCLA. Got my Bullets still in there, so
Ooh.
Yeah,
I'm-
I don't
I'm
have
all with them,
Syracuse.
but,
I have Creighton.
yeah.
And 6 seed, by the
Yeah.
way, who I put a futures bet on before the tournament. But
Big East basketball.
look, the Big East is amazing. I mean, can we name the teams that are still alive in the Big East? Xavier, Creighton. Who else? There's more in there? Maybe not.
No, I think that might be
I
it.
think
now.
that's
What
it.
conference has the most?
The SEC. The SEC's been really good.
Is it the SEC?
Kentucky lost.
Arkansas, another Sweet 16.
Yeah, Arkansas. No, UConn's available. It's still
Oh,
playing.
UConn, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have thought about this before we started naming it, right?
But interesting thing that I saw, I think I might have seen it on social media or a YouTube video or something. But so I bet this future bet on Creighton before the tournament started. I can't remember what the odds are. I think it pays like 400 something bucks on a $10 or $20 bet. But if you were to just bet every single game and roll it over as you go, it will pay twice as much as if you bet the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so why bet the future?
Well, it's an interesting philosophy. There's always interesting I guess rabbit holes bet wise this time of year because of Nate, you mentioned it more or less. It's these 1 game sample sizes that you don't know, to be fair, what's going to exactly happen. You can have an idea, like going into yesterday, think about Fairleigh Dickinson and FAU. You have to figure after you can't keep up what they did, and they almost did against FAU. They really did. So if you were to bet, the pregame, I think it closed at 15.5. I mean, you more than
I took
covered.
16.5. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just stuff like that where, you go down the different rabbit holes and such. So, yeah, I can definitely believe. Now, is that just if you were to follow from game 1 of a specific team, for example?
Yeah,
So,
let's
like in
say I
your
took
case,
Creighton and I started by betting $10 on Creighton instead of a $10 future.
Right.
I don't remember what the exact odds were, but let's say that I won and doubled my money. They were probably favored.
They're big favorites first round.
Yeah, so let's say that I won on that money line bet, even just $5. So now I got 15. So now second round bet, they were probably underdogs in that game. Is a 6 seed.
Against who? Again?
Geez, I watched the whole game. I can't even
forgot.
remember.
Oh my goodness, I can't remember either. They played yesterday.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
so many games. But let's just
Baylor.
Friday.
yeah,
Baylor.
Baylor.
Yeah, I think they did. I think they
they closed as favorites.
No, they closed as I think it was close to being a pick, if not like a slight.
Well, let's say it's a pick,
so
and they won. So now I got $30. Now they go to the Sweet 16. Let's just say they're all picks. Now I bet that 30, I got 60. When in the Elite 8, now instead of 60, it's 120. Final Four and 240, and you end up winning much more than you would have on the future bet. Obviously every team's got a little bit of different odds as you go through, but it's, if you look at it next year before the tournament starts, before you do your futures bets, it might be a more efficient way to do it, to just bet every single game on the money line. Then you also get the option, if you get to the Final Four and you're like, maybe I'll just take half of my money back, and because I took Creighton as a future bet to win it all. But do I really think they're going to win it all? I don't know. And if they get to the Final Four, that's when I'll probably start hedging.
Right. Seems like a good bet. One good bet, though, that's people have made so far this year are the under. The under's 35-17 this NCAA
That's amazing.
Tournament. They've been hitting at an unprecedented rate.
That's interesting.
First half unders as well.
So imagine if you parlayed underdogs and the under on every single game. Man, you'd be down in the Cayman Islands right now.
Yeah, really. Probably be doing pretty well.
But the best thing about March Madness though in the tournament, in these high school Final Fours and everything, is that once it's all over, it's time for spring.
Right. Time to play some golf.
Yeah, there you go. So, but great job to you guys covering Waterloo. That was obviously a lot more exciting, and it means a lot, I think, to members of the Waterloo community and alumni base who might not be interested in subscribing to watch, on a telecast where maybe the play-by-play guy is seeing them for the first time. I think a lot of people really enjoyed, I know they have because they told me, enjoyed your guys' call. And I think a lot of people enjoy the way that we cover it, not just Waterloo, but Newark and all the other teams we covered throughout the postseason. But good job. Good
Same
job
thing
to
to
all
you
of
guys.
us.
I thought you and Tim Castleman did a great job on the.
Oh, it was perfect calling out with Tim because he said he's a Newark grad, and Newark, he's seen more Newark games than anybody, and so we were able to touch on some of the history and maybe where this Newark team fit in historically, because it was a 5th trip to the Final Four for the Newark program, never won a state title. So he was able to kind of reflect on maybe where this team fit in historically in the history of Newark. So, and it was fun. He's does it for the same reason I do it. We just like doing it.
Right.
He's so it was fun.
So we'll be rooting on the Waterloo Tigers from afar on Saturday as they continue their quest in the Federation's tournament. We'll also be rooting on Jim's Creighton Blue Jays, try to come through there. So we'll be taking a look at those teams. So we'll be back here on FingerLakes1.com. Take a look at our website. We got all the coverage right here at your fingertips.